Vaibhav, and I'm a Microsoft Business Central application consultant. Today, we will talk about sustainability management in Business Central, which is a new module. Of course, it's being released by Microsoft since last few years, and every release we are getting newer and newer functionalities. So that's why we will talk about this, what is new inside this. So what I will do today, firstly, we will talk what is sustainability. So sustainability is basically how we balance our environment, how the greenhouse gases impact our environment, and based on that, we need to make sure that we are having the balance between the environment, economy, and equity of the organization. So what basically we do in Business Central? In Business Central, we basically, track the emissions, GHG emissions to the environment, and we can manage the reporting and manage it to the share the reporting to the local authorities, because in few countries there is now a legal requirement that you also need to make sure about your impact on the environment and what's the sustainability management you are doing as a part of the business. So for this functionality allows companies to record data using sustainability journals, calculate emissions based on various factors, and reports on their carbon footprint and other relevant metrics. Now, what is we are having in the greenhouse gas emission tracking? So based on, there are some GHG protocol which is mentioned. So there are three scopes basically: scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3. So scope 1 basically showcase your direct emissions from your own control sources, yeah, like on vehicles, company vehicles, or facilities. So that is comes under scope 1. Scope 2 basically comes your indirect emissions from the purchase energy. If you are purchasing any energy, then whatever the carbon emissions you are having, that you can track under scope 2. And scope 3 basically your values like business travels, value chain, which is your goods, or these things can be. So that comes under scope 3. And what we can do in BC, we can do the data collection and management. So we can create the sustainability journals. If we want to calculate the emissions basis of specific parameters, we can track it through the purchase documents. We can track it through the work centers, resources, items, carbon credits, water and waste management. Those sort of things we can do. And I will showcase everything in the Business Center. And what we can report here, we can create the sustainability journals that is available within the Business Center. And in the KPIs indicator, we are having a specific role center for the sustainability that we can see. We can create the built-in Power BI reports, and there are certain other features which basically helps us to generate the report based on the requirement. Now, what we will do, we will quickly move to the Business Central screen. And this is the favorite screen, which I always like, Business Center. So what we can see here, we can see here firstly the company name, which is Cronus USA Limited. And what I have done here in my role centers, I have selected here the role sustainability manager, which is comes, by default out of the box functionality. And what we can see on my role center, I can see, chart of sustainability accounts, the way we wish to see the chart of accounts. This is specifically for the sustainability. We will come for more details, sustainability account categories and subcategories, items, vendors. This is for sustainability journals. If we want to create, there are some out of the box reporting, which we can generate from here. Some Power BI reporting is also there. If we want to generate, some Power BI report, so we can connect Business Central with the Power BI, and we can generate these reportings for them. Next, we are having CO2 this month. What are the carbon, consumed we have done this month, CH4, N2O. So all the greenhouse gases which we want to report based on the basis of the month, we can click here, and it will navigate you through the sustainable ledger entries. And from there, this is giving you the data. This is basis of on the ongoing purchase. This is quite simple, like the way we are doing for all the modules. You can see your ongoing purchase order, invoices, anything. These are some KPIs which has been mentioned here, like what is the realized percentage for CO2, realized percentage for CH4, N2O, CO2, CH4, N2O baselines. So those sort of things you can see. And some of the insights, if you want to see your scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, the emissions on the CO2, CH4, and N2O, those sort of informations you can see over here. If I click here on any of them, you can see that the figures are also appearing here. Right. Now, we have to think from a business point of view. Like for generating the financial transactions, we create the chart of accounts. For generating our environmental impact, sustainability transactions, we have to create the chart of sustainability accounts. And if I open here any of the account, we can see it looks like quite similar screen to our chart of accounts, where we can define the unique number of the account, name of the account, and here we are having category and subcategory. Remember, we were having account category and account subcategory in the chart of accounts. Same way, we are having account category and subcategory for the chart of sustainable accounts. Only the difference is that in the financial accounting, we would have only 6 parameters over there, which we cannot create. But here we can create our own categories as well. So here we have given like what category it is there. So if you see here, company cars, carbon credit scope, fungitive, hotel night stays, mobile consumption, purchase goods, on the whatever the basis of reporting you are having, utility providers. And on those categories, you can see we have also given, some scope as well that we will discuss. So we have selected here account categories. Then on the basis of account categories, we have also selected subcategories that can also be defined. This is quite same. The chart of accounts data we are having posting, heading, total, begin total, and end total. Same way we can have here posting as well. Totaling is same, search name we can define, and is it used for direct posting. Here we can see the balances for different type of GHG emissions. So you can see CO2, CH4, N2O, water waste, discharge water waste, whatever you want, you can do. And on the top, you can define the dimensions and you can see the ledger entries. This is something we are having in the sustainability chart of accounts. Next, we are having sustainability account categories, and it is quite important. What we do here on the basis of the account, we define like what emission scope is there for that type of account. So if you see my slides, which we have seen, scope 1 comes with the direct emission from owned or controlled sources, which is fuel consumption or company vehicles. Scope 2, indirect emission from the purchased goods, and scope 3, all other indirect emissions in the value chain. So those sort of things we have defined here. What are the scope we are having for what type of accounts? Then here we define, you can see if this category is used to register the CO2 emissions, yes. If it is for CH4, so we can see mobile consumption is basically for CH4, stationary is for CH4, stationary also does N2O. So whatever the basis we are having, we can define type of emissions each account could have. Then how we calculate our calculation foundation, like whether this data is calculated basis of the distance, basis of the installations, basis of the fuel, or do you have any custom value on the basis of that you want to calculate it. So here we are calculating on the basis of general ledgers. So that's why we have mentioned here J1 custom value. And then if we want to calculate any value from the general ledgers figures, that we can do, and dimensions we can also define. Now each account could have its subcategories. So if I define here subcategories, so in subcategories you can see if we are having the purchase goods, then aluminum, glass, plastic, steel, whatever the different type of gases. And on each different type of subcategories, we could have different emissions factor for CO2, CH4, and 2O, that we can define here. So what it will do, whenever we do, any of the transactions for the sustainability on the basis of the account, and system will automatically calculate its impact on the CO2, CH4, whatever it is. Now, subcategories we have already seen, like account is having the subcategories, and we can define our emission factors and values over here. If we want to, we can definitely do here. Then the important thing which I want to showcase here is the sustainability setup. So if you see here the sustainability setup, so this is the emissions unit of measure code that we are having here, kg, that we can define whatever the unit of measure code we are having, that we can absolutely define here. Next is waste unit of measure, waste unit of water unit of measure, discharge unit into water unit of measure. So those codes you can define. And here some of the validations are also there. Like if you want to define your country and regions mandatory, that you can define. You can define your responsibility center mandatory. So those sort of informations you can definitely do whenever you want. Next, we are having block calculation foundations or enable background error check. So those sort of things we can absolutely do. Next, you can see the calculations, and this is quite important. You can see use like GL account emissions. So whether you want to calculate your emissions on the GL account, on the items, on the item charge. So different options are given here. So what we can do, so if you see here GL account emissions. So if I go to chart of accounts here, which is my GL account, and if I open any of the account here, you can see a sustainability tab is defined here, where I can define the default sustainability account on each of the chart of account. But imagine if I turn off this boolean from here and go back and go to my chart of accounts again and open any of the account, you can see sustainability tab is not appearing. Why? Because I haven't allowed my system to calculate based on the GL account, right? So the same thing, it is on item card if you want to calculate from the item emission. So if I go to items, I can open any of the item, and in those items, I will find a new tab, which is called sustainability. And I can mention here, do you want to have the GHG credit? So I can mention here whatever my parameters will be. If I do have sustainability certificate, default sustainability accounts, CH2 and CH4 emissions based on the item, that I can define here. So what will happen if I procure that item through the purchase invoice or the orders, then automatically sustainable ledger entries will be created and we can record it through. Okay, so same thing if you want to do for item charge, resource emissions, water, work center, machine centers, and this is enable value chain tracking. So if you want to see your value entries, sustainable value entries also to track it more. So we are having sustainability value entries where we can see item ledger entries and the related sustainable value entries as well if we do any transactions, right? And this is basically for the decimal places that we all know. And this is reporting, and this is introduced later by Microsoft because certain government authorities may want to report the emissions in a different unit of measure. So you can select here whatever the reporting unit of measure is, and you can define your system accordingly. Now, next thing is that we are having sustainable account categories that we have already discussed. Like we are having general journal template, same way we are also having the sustainability journal template where we can use the sustainability journals if we want to do any manual transactions. So that is defined here that I can define and post it if I want to. And the last thing, which is basically a sustainable ledger entry. So whenever we post any sustainability accounts entries, it goes under sustainability ledger entries, and these looks like something like this. Okay, so what I will do now, we will basically, try to create a item, and that item basically we will use a sustainability account. So that can be done under the GL accounts as well. So that is not a problem. So basically I'm using this Athens desk, and inside this I will mention goods, which could be a purchased goods. That desk could be anything. I mean, currently I can use this white word purchased electricity, purchase goods. And for now, I can mention it into the steel, and I can mention default CO2 emissions, which could be 1.09, 2.03, whatever the values I do have, I can define here. And what I will do, I will create a purchase order for this. So once I click here on the purchase order and try to buy these goods, selecting a vendor here and using the same account here, which I can use Athens desk. And here you can see carbon credit per UM must have a value on the item number. So we might have missed that. So I can click here on the show item card, and here it was asking something carbon credit number. So let's see where we can define this. I will use this personalize option if there is anything. Okay, this is the UM, so that I can mention one for now that we have missed. So I have defined here. And if I go back and try to add the same item, you can see that is appearing here. Now I'm buying it for 780 and try to do a preview post. So here you can see sustainability ledger entries and value entries are automatically coming. And you can see whatever the parameters we have mentioned, like emissions, CO2, C2E emissions, carbon emissions, whatever we have defined and factors were there on those accounts, 0.2 emission factor CO2. So those informations are automatically coming here. And we can also track it with the value entries with the item number specified as well. So all those values that is basically related to an item that can be selected here. These values can be changed based on whatever the organization, sustainability parameters are. So once I click here on the OK button, I can post. And if I see my sustainable ledger entries, I can see those figures in the sustainability ledgers. Right now, we are also having the sustainability journal option. So if I go here and see the sustainability journal, then you can see I can define the same way, item, account number, and here I can manually type any, distance, time factor if I allowed to. Those sort of things I can mention. And if I want to do any manual input, I can, put those CH4 and N2 manually as well. So if you see the other options are not allowing me to manual input because this manual input boolean is not true. Other than that, rest things are basically same. You can click here on the post button and it will basically bring your sustainability ledger entry. Now we can see some of the report. Like if I want to see the total emissions, I can click here on the show details, click on the download options, and then what we can see here, we can see the total emissions. So some of the report is this. And if I click here on the enable editing and enable content, so it will basically showcase me some of the data. I lost my cursor. 1 minute. Yeah. So here you can see the data is showcasing based on whatever we are having here. Right.